All right, before I get into the podcast, I'm just going to kind of freestyle, kind of get myself together. Um, I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and this current year has gone great. It's currently 2022 when I'm making this podcast, and I put the date on there for an important reason because I recorded two podcasts back in the year 2020, right when the pandemic started, and I did not release those those podcasts. Like, I really apologize about that, but I listened to those podcasts many times over, and those podcasts were very instrumental in me taking my career to the next level. So my motivation behind these podcasts is to really inspire people who want to be professional musicians. It doesn't matter if you are an audio engineer, a songwriter, or a producer. There is so many different ways to make money in the audio industry, and I'm at the point in my career now where I really want to pour into others. So this is really what this podcast is about. So I'm not sure how the presentation and the decorum, all those things that go into making a great podcast would be, but I love talking. I love pouring into others. I have a lot of conversations with great people. So this is it. This is the podcast. So the first topic that I want to talk about is don't be afraid to start small. And I can just shorten that and just say, don't be afraid to start, because everybody who start is going to start small. I've been posting on my Facebook wall throughout the day on talking about not being able to perform in front of small audiences. And I told people, I said, if you can't perform in front of an audience of 20 people, you can't perform in front of an audience with 20,000 people. And it just goes to say, it's the coolest thing about my career now is I get the opportunity to work with all sorts of artists. I get a chance to work with the A-listers, and I get the opportunity to work with people who aren't listers, right? Who nobody even knows these people names. And it's cool because I work at the production manager of a venue, and I partner with one of the coolest people who I believe in Mississippi as far as bringing entertainment to the state, someone who's legendary. I won't name drop right here, but I get an opportunity to work with a lot of artists who I've never heard of. A lot of other people haven't heard of either, but the people who have heard of them, it's almost like it's a cult following. I mean, I've seen people perform in front of less than 20 people, and I've seen people who performed in front of more than 200 people. I mean, it's crazy just getting an opportunity to be a part of that artist's vision regardless. But I say that to say this is that in both of those cases, the artists who were performing, none of them had full-time jobs. I mean, people have been on the road touring for forever and a day, especially after the pandemic, and a lot of them had enough resources to fall back on throughout the pandemic. So I try to tell professional artists is like, you don't have to be afraid to start small. You have to look at it like this. If you are an artist, I tell people this all the time. You are an artist. The size of the crowd does not dictate your musical talent or musical ability, which means that if you love music, you should be willing to perform your musical work in front of any audience. And in this world that we are in right now, it's so superficial where people feel that rappers or musical entertainers make more money, I guess, than they make. And a lot of people don't realize how rare that these people are that are placed in front of you in the musical industry. It's almost like being a unicorn. I mean, these people are literally one in a million. I mean, there was a figure that came out. I don't know if it's 20 or 30,000 songs that are released on a daily basis. Look up how many of those songs are getting platinum plaques. I think it's a figure like 3% of all the songs on the streaming platforms are actually generating the revenue. Like, it's not a lot of people who are really on top of the music industry. Even as an audio engineer, you go to the studio, you see all the platinum plaques, and you have to realize how out of all the artists that these studios are working with, how many of those artists are getting platinum plaques. Like, every artist that's coming through the studio isn't going to get a platinum or gold plaque. But one of the coolest things about that is you don't need a platinum or a gold plaque to be successful in the industry. You can be successful without that. You can be highly successful performing your music in front of 20 fans at a time. I've seen people come in, perform their musical talent in front of small crowds, and they have merch, and they talk to every fan, and they can make a ton of money before they even leave the performance or leave the venue. So what I try to tell artists to focus on is having a product, having something that people can buy into. And I challenge artists all the time to be the person that people really want to buy into, because you are a product at the end of the day. And I have to really take the time to instill particular values into artists so they can be successful, because I feel that it's my duty now, even though I'm in a position myself where I have to support myself, and I also have to support my family, is I still have to take time to really pour into artists. And I'm telling artists that if you are coachable, if you are willing to listen, I can teach you how to make a great income off of your music. I'm not going to say it's not difficult to do. It's very difficult to do, but it's very easy if you follow instructions and you have a coach. So before I get too far into the podcast, let me share my personal experience. I mentioned in the intro that I'm an audio engineer in the Jackson, Mississippi area. I do live sound. I'm an entrepreneur. I own my business. I own my own studio. And recently, just say it's approaching 2 months, is that I was able to walk off of a full-time job, and some people would say quit your job to do music full-time, but I'm here to tell you that it doesn't work like that. I was working a full-time job as a supervisor at a warehouse. So I was putting a lot of work in, full-time job, and outside of the job I was working full-time hours doing audio engineering, which means 60 to 80 hours I was working a week before I decided to leave my job. And the reason why I left my job, because it got to a point where, for one, for years I was making equal the amount of money that I was at my job, outside of my job, doing audio engineering, doing stagehand gigs, doing whatever I needed to do. So it got to a point where the scales finally tipped to where I could not only match the money that I was making from my full-time job, is I was able to replace the money that I was getting from my full-time job doing audio engineering production work. So I kind of say that to say this: when I am saying these things, I have credibility in that area. I don't want to use the terms that I know what I'm talking about, because new information comes out every day, but I know what it takes to really get this thing off the ground, and I really want to share the information. And I'm making this podcast because I don't get an opportunity to touch everybody. I don't get an opportunity to train everybody. If somebody wanted to sit up under me, be a fly on the wall, and really learn the game, I would teach them the game. But that also takes time. So if you are somebody who knows me personally, definitely listening to this podcast will be a prerequisite before I even take the time out of my schedule to even work with you. But what I am going to have to instill in, I'm not even going to say the masses, but instill in whoever would like to listen, particular values that it takes to really go out there and kill it in music. And I realize when you're young, I've been young in music before. I've made mistakes. I've been young in business before. I've made mistakes. And when you put those two together, you have the music business. So what I'm telling you is I can combine the knowledge from both ends, and I can share that with you because I've been young once, and I made mistakes that really sabotaged my career at the time. And I will tell people this: write this down, take a mental note or whatever. If you are doing music or doing any type of business and you aren't making money yet, it's something that you haven't discovered. It's something that's going on. It's mistakes that you are making. And if it's mistakes that you are making, that means that there are things that need to be corrected. So you have to take the time to not be prideful when somebody is in a position higher than you, making money, and you are criticizing their work. And I'll break the news to everybody. That's called hate. So it's no other way around that. If somebody is in a position higher than you and you criticize them because you're jealous because they are there and you are not, you feel that you could, that if you were in their position that you could do a better job. But when you get the opportunity to do that job on a smaller scale, I mean, it's a disaster. So if you have not gotten to a certain point, I'm telling you, the first step of starting small is you need to get up under somebody else that's successful. The first step, let me repeat that again. You need to sit down. You need to be under someone who is already successful. All right? And that could be in the form of finding a mentor. There's nothing wrong with having a mentor. It's even better. I don't know why these notifications are going off like crazy. I have my phone on airplane mode. I'm trying to silence them, but they keep going off. Anyway, but find somebody that's successful to be under. Stop hating. Stop being negative. Find a mentor. As an artist, what that may mean is you may have to open up for another artist. It may not be time for you to be a headliner yet. And let me get clarity on this issue, because that doesn't mean that you need to pay $1,000 to a janky promoter just to open up for somebody. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Is when you are up under someone who's established, you aren't going to have to pay them to let you perform. It doesn't work like that, because you are giving them a product and a service. You're giving them the ability to perform in front of a warm room versus a cold room. You're taking that preliminary work out from up under them. You may be helping them better perform what they need to do or do their job. So that's what that means. So when you are up under somebody, you have to be a good student. You have to be a good mentee. You have to stay in the shadows. You can't be trying to outshine people off the bat, because when people see someone who has a thief mentality, when people meet someone who isn't authentic, that's a red flag. Because I see things in the market, and this is one thing that I see, is that some people will try to compete with people right off the bat. And that's a shame. They will try to compete with someone right off the bat, and they will try to use the information that people give them to compete against those people in their same market. So you have to know, as an artist, how to get up under somebody else that's more successful than you. As an artist, audio engineer, or whatever, you have to know how to get up under somebody. And once you get under someone, you have to know how to collaborate with someone. I'm an entrepreneur. If someone gives me a check for any product or service, I look at this person like this person is a client. I look at this person like this person is a partner. I never have the type of mentality that I'm working for someone else, because I don't work for anybody. I'm going to look out for my personal interests, but I'm going to look out for the people's interests who I partner with. I'm going to take the time to make sure that their brand is recommended in a positive light. And that's the first step. So you cannot, once you partner with someone who has a more established a relationship with you, you cannot try to outshine that person too soon. Now, someone who's immature, and I will say you have to watch out for these people. A red flag to me is someone who feels that someone is always hating on them. When you aren't handling your business correctly, you are always going to feel that someone is hating on you. That's negative energy. That shouldn't even be a thought. That shouldn't even be on your mind, that someone is hating on you. No one is hating on you. You're just in a position where you are trying to outshine people. You are talented, but you aren't trying to show homage to anyone. And I'll just call it out. I'm in the Jackson, Mississippi market, and there is a lot of sentiment. I would say in the indie community where they feel that they aren't getting acknowledged by the established artists. They don't feel that the established artists are taking the time to seeking them out, to give them an opportunity. And I will say that logic is just hating, because you are trying to enter a market that you feel is established, that other person established, and you aren't trying to help that person better establish that market. You're trying to get an established person to help you exceed them. And that's not a smart business decision. And you, as an artist or as an inspired engineer or whatever, you have to have the mentality of, what do you have to better help people? Because it's like this. It's like if someone gives you knowledge, there has to be a medium of exchange. I mean, there has to be money, or you have to be somewhat of an intern for that person. Is that if a person gives you knowledge, you have to give this person work. One of the ways that my music career started, I'll tell this story many times on this podcast or whatever, is my first gig that I did was Jackson R&B Fest. I believe this was 2017 at the Jackson Convention Center. And this is how I got on this gig. I took off from work. This gig was around my birthday anyway, so I said, you know what? I'm just going to show up. I'm not going to ask for money. I'm not going to ask for anything. I'm just going to show up and ask people, do they need me to carry their bags? Do they need me to do carry their bags? Do they need me to do anything, right? So I showed up in the morning time. I didn't want to show up like right at loading, like, because I wanted people to be able to get established, get their day started. So I knew somebody who was working the production at the venue. So I told him, look, I was asking him for months, man, get me an opportunity, help me get on this, that, and the other. And he would not put me on. So what I did, I kind of followed his progress. I knew kind of where he would be, what type of shows he was working on. So I told him, I just said, look, I'm just going to pop up, man. Like, I'm just going to pop up, and whatever happens, if they kick me out the venue, they kick me out the venue, whatever. But I was able to get into the venue because I knew him. I said, I'm up here to see so-and-so. So I got up in the venue and I just asked anybody, do you need any help? Do you need anybody to carry bags? I didn't ask for money. I didn't ask for anything because I knew that if I got the experience being in the venue, this show, helping set up speaker systems or whatever, is that this experience would translate to more work and me making money. So when I showed up, I really didn't show up for money. I just wanted to get the skill set. So it was multiple companies there, and I asked everybody, they need any help? And it was this one company actually allowed me to help them. Great guy. That guy's named Zach. That's a guy who put me on in the business in Jackson, Mississippi, as far as doing backline. Like, that's how I got my start. So I showed up and I asked anybody, did they need any help carrying bags? And one person, Zach, he said, okay. Like, I was green. Like, I showed up in stagehand attire. Like, I showed up ready to work. I probably even had a pair of gloves, dressed in all black. So I showed up dressed for the occasion like I was supposed to be there. And he just said, look, I can't pay you for today because I didn't plan for it. But he said, if you help me today, I'll pay you for the next 2 days. And I said, cool. So I helped him all day on backline, set up the drums, man. Like, it was a great show. After the show, he wrote out this check, and I was just so surprised at that time on how much the check was. I mean, that was my first backline gig. Now, it's kind of normal now. But I was so surprised on how much the check was. It's just kind of like the principle behind it was I showed up not expecting anything, and just to get paid for that particular gig, like, it really meant the world to me. So definitely, that guy, he's out the backline business now, but it's cool because I'm able to, keep working. But that's how I got my start in Jackson, Mississippi. And the cool thing that year, in year following, I got a chance to do some tour dates with the McDonald's Celebration. I think it's the Inspiration Celebration Gospel Tour, or whatever the full name of that tour was. So I got an opportunity to work with some great artists. And then I also got the opportunity, I can connect the dots to me being seen working with him. I got the opportunity to work on some major productions that came in the city of Jackson when Tyler Perry came to Jackson, I got an opportunity to work with him, David, Tamla Man, Monica, Les Mis, Cats the Musical, like pretty much every major show that came in Jackson, Mississippi. I got an opportunity to do the back line, set up the speakers in the venue. Like every major arena or venue in Jackson, Mississippi, well, in the Jackson metro area, I've been able to get the experience working in. And I'm not saying that, to brag on me or who I am. I'm just telling you that if you are an audio engineer or a musician or anybody, that a full-time money career in audio is possible. And the reason why I say full-time money, because there is no such thing as being a full-time musician. I mean, anybody who say you're going to quit your job to do music full-time, I just tell that person, look, you job-minded and you need to stay at your job and don't quit, because music is really not just a career choice. It's a lifestyle. I mean, you're really doing music all around the clock. So if you are listening to this podcast and you're debating, should you really get into this music or dive deep down in this music, I will say that it's like jumping in the deep end of the pool. It's just like you're either in the pool or you're not in the pool. You're either fully booked, busy all the time, or you weren't booked. It's no in between. So for somebody getting into music and want to really survive in music and do this music full time, because I'm not just talking about just starting small in music. Like, you have to start. So you have to get up under somebody who's already successful. And two, if you're taking notes, you just have to do it. You have to do music. You have to do it often. You have to create a habit so you don't have to use willpower. Because when you don't have a habit of doing things, you're forcing yourself to do something. But when you have a habit of doing it, it's almost second nature. If you're mixing, you have to mix a lot of times. You have to be able to deal with the stress. You have to be able to deal with the pressure. And if you're used to dealing with stress and pressure all the time, eventually it doesn't become stress. It just becomes normal. So you have to be willing to do music all the time. And when I'm saying don't be afraid to start small, like, you can't be afraid to start. Like, you have to be able to do those small things every day, and you have to be able to stay encouraged. You have to be able to keep going. You have to deal with so much doubt, people telling you you can't do it or whatever. So I can kind of speak on a situation that happened to me today. Is I put on my mind to really do a podcast today. I have a studio session coming up. An artist, he's coming in from out of town. So, I mean, this studio session, it's major. I'm in Mississippi. This client is in town from Florida. So, I was having a software issue. Man, it's good that I came to the studio early, because I said I hadn't been in the studio for a while because I've been doing live gigs. And I made the mistake at my live gigs. I'm a Pro Tools user, and I said, well, this week I'm going to use Reaper, which every week I use Pro Tools doing live work for a reason, because I want to make sure that my Pro Tools rig is always ready to go. Long story short, right? It's Memorial Day weekend. I believe, I don't want to get it wrong. But I believe it's Memorial Day weekend. A lot of people are traveling. There's a lot of stuff closed. So had an issue with my Pro Tools software. Couldn't contact tech support. Couldn't get any help online. And I'm like, oh man, my Pro Tools rig is not going to be ready to go for my session. So for 2 hours straight, before I even got into what I'm doing now, I'm trying to solve a technical issue. Now to solve this technical issue, my creative juices, are gone. It's not flowing. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go get a cup of coffee, come back, record this podcast. And so I go get a cup of coffee, and all the coffee places are closed down like early. And I'm like, oh man, yeah. It's Memorial Day weekend. Every day is closed. So it's almost like, I said, okay, I'm just going to go to the gas station, get coffee, get back to the studio, and then I'm just going to have to get my mind right when I get there. So the cool thing is that of course, I'm recording this podcast. I got myself back into my creative mode, and I was recording video for this podcast, but my iPhone actually ran out of storage. Should have used my other camera, so I'm not going to have video for this entire podcast. Anyway, this is the first episode, and I'm going to have to do everything that I can do to just go ahead, release it, put it out there, get it out. It is what it is. And my studio session that I was preparing for actually got pushed back 30 minutes. So that's cool, is I would get the opportunity to do the studio session and complete this podcast. So that just goes to say this, right? Getting into that creative mode is that you have to just go out there and do it. Going into this business and keeping a business running as an entrepreneur, I have to send invoices. I still have an invoice and an estimate to send. Like tonight, I'm going to barely get any sleep. But the thing is, I'm determined to do this. And what I will tell people is that this thing is not your job that's holding you back from doing this music thing. No, it's you. And I had to come to this realization is for the last 2 months, I've had all this freedom, and I really haven't gotten the amount of work done that I feel that I would get done. And I could use the excuse and say, okay, well, for the first 6-7 weeks, even now, I've been having a lot of live work, been having a lot of shows, been staying busy. That's a good thing. Been getting some good travel in. But the thing is that when I stopped working at my job, it really didn't give me the freedom that I thought that I would have. So what I tell people about, what I would tell people about about making a living in the music industry is starting small, is that before, when you get to the point you don't have an administrative team, the administrative team is you. uh let me go back through my points. Is you can't be afraid to get up under someone, sit up under somebody who knows what they're doing first. All right. So, you get to the second step. You're taking time to do it and do it often. And three, the last point that I would make before I end a podcast is you have to handle your administration. You have to handle your administration, which means is that, okay, all of a sudden you're on your own. So now you have to manage yourself. Okay, now you have to go out there and book gigs. You have to send emails. Man, sending emails suck. Man, they really do. You have to send out those invoices. You have to send out those estimates, man. And I think this third step is really what kills independent artists, because when you are at a job, you have an HR manager, you have a VP of the company, you have so many people who are pushing the paperwork while you are doing the work. And you don't realize how much goes into the administrative and the planning. One thing that really keeps me grounded is that once a day I have to get into my folder, and I call it the Millionaire's Notebook. Why I came up with that name, I don't know. That's what worked for me. And eventually I aspire, well, I'm not going to say eventually, I would say now, I aspire to be a millionaire, and I know that I'm going to get there eventually. But I have this notebook because as an entrepreneur, I have to do my vision casting. I have to write my goals down. I have to know what my plan of attack is, what to focus on, what not to focus on, because I don't have anybody controlling my schedule now but me. And if you aren't handling the administrative end of your business, you are going to end up broke. It's no ifs, ands, buts or about it, no in between. If you don't handle your business administratively, you are going to end up broke. So if you don't like sending emails, that's a skill that you're just going to have to learn. If you don't like following up with people, that's a skill that you're going to have to learn. If you don't like recruiting, training, and cultivating talent, that's something that you are going to have to learn, because the administrative end is that when you're starting small, you don't have the tools and resources to hire anybody. And what I would recommend to people is that don't ask for too many favors in the beginning, because you're going to owe people a lot for a little. I would compare that to having a penny stock, right? Your business right now is worth zero. And if you are selling 50% of your business now, basically you would sell it for a little or nothing. When you make $1 million, those people are going to want $500,000. So instead of being able to pay somebody a percentage when you get to the top, just say about 20% to a manager, you are going to owe people a lot more. You're going to have to deal with partners who don't do a lot of work, but when you start making money, they want to get paid first. No, it doesn't work like that. You doing the administration will save you a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. You have to make the sacrifice to be a boss. And when you become your own boss, you have to be willing to put the work in that your boss was doing. Your boss was not on the assembly line working with you. And if they were, it was for a short time. Your boss was behind that computer. Your boss was working on those spreadsheets. Your boss was doing reports. And it's hard for someone, this is what I see, it's hard for someone who's able to master the blue collar side to master the white collar side. So be good enough at the white collar stuff until you can partner with a record label or a manager or somebody along that nature. And we're talking about starting small, so a lot of people may not conceptualize even getting to that point. But I will say, if somebody tells me that they want to be an independent artist and they don't ever want to sign a deal, to me, that's a red flag, because partnerships exist. And most of the people who saying that they don't want to sign a record deal, they're signing a deal with their job, saying that they are an at-will employee. If you are in the state of Mississippi or any other southern states for that matter, they call that workers' rights, which basically means you don't have any rights, which means you're an at-will employee, which means that you can quit whenever you want, in a nutshell. But it more so means that they can fire you whenever they want for any reason. You don't have contract, you don't have any union representation. So we have people who are inspiring artists who are willing to sign a janky deal with their employer, but on the same side of the coin, they say they won't sign with a record label. So I will say, do not be delusional. Understand how American business works. This is the music business. It's music and it's also business. You have to have good music and you also have to have great business. So point 3, what I was talking about, handle your administration, is basically learn how to handle your business. Oh man, just being the operator of a studio, being an audio engineer, is I see artists rapping off internet beats all the time. I see artists who aren't registered with ASCAP, BMI as an artist and a publisher all the time. And I tell people, you know what? Send me the contract. Let me read over it. I'm not an entertainment attorney, but I have experience looking over contracts. I know what a lot of the terms mean. And I can see these contracts, and a lot of these artists are getting bad deals just because they don't have their business handled right. When you are in the small stages, you may not have the money to be able to afford to hire an entertainment attorney, and you may not be ready to hire an entertainment attorney. When you go to the next step, absolutely hire an entertainment attorney. If you're an artist and you're buying beats from producers, hire an entertainment attorney. But you want to know what's cheaper than hiring an entertainment attorney is buying a book on basic entertainment law, buying a book on contracts. You can buy a book for $30 that will teach you how to read contracts. And that sounds harsh. Like I'm the type of person is I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to talk strong to people. I'm going to just tell it like it is, because when I was young, when I was in business, man, I'm not going to say that I hated my mentor, but I kind of resented him and I thought he was a butthole because of the way that he talked. But now going out there and starting my own business, is his voice just echoes in my head every day. And I'm like, dang, man, this dude was right. So I would rather offend you now and you get to a point later where you can say like, hey, that guy, man, was really dropping some gems. That guy was really dropping some knowledge, man. And that's what it's all about. So I appreciate the people who took the time to listen to this podcast, who are taking the time and tuning in. This definitely won't be the last one. And I want to make sure that I'm taking the time to really educate and empower anybody who wants to be educated and empowered. So just as a recap, starting small in the music industry is, first thing you have to do is start. You have to sit up under somebody. You have to establish those daily habits. And the game is better caught than taught. So when you sit up under somebody, that definitely will put you a step ahead. That definitely will give you a shortcut, especially if you're around the right people who have a great reputation. Now, if you're around somebody who has a crappy reputation, that will come back to bite you in the end. And then, you just got to do it. You got to put in that work. I mentioned earlier in the podcast is that, you got to have a routine and you got to create habits so you don't have to really dive into that willpower. And 3, you got to handle your business. You have to be willing to do the administrative work. And I will say before I get off this podcast is that it's not easy being an artist. I've been an artist before. I've been in a group before. I've come out with records before from start to finish. It's a beautiful process. I love producing, making beats. I love being behind a microphone. I kind of gave that up to be an engineer, but maybe I should push myself to make a record or an album this year. So I'm just going to keep that up on the wraps because that'll be interesting. I know that I could go out there, make a great record, but being an engineer, it's not easy making money being an engineer. I always tell people that it's like selling air. it's possible people sell canned air. People also sell bottled water all the time. So if you can convince someone, if you put tap water in a plastic bottle and you get people to pay a premium for it, it's just good marketing. So you can be an artist and make money. You can be an engineer and make money. You can be a stagehand and make money. You can be an A1, A2, make money. You can be a backline tech, make money. You can manage an artist and make money. You can do anything that you want to do in the music industry. You can be a photographer and make money. The list goes on and on. Point that I'm making is you can make money. Small isn't always small because you are making a big impact for your client. Focus on one person all the time. Don't focus on the masses and miss what's in front of you. Don't miss the forest for the trees, if that even makes sense. But you know what I'm saying? Is don't be afraid to be small because it's all in retrospect. I've had somebody chase me down in a hallway. I had an artist that I mixed for, and I did not know who this person was. I mean, from a can of paint. But, you know, this person didn't sell a lot of tickets at the venue or anything. Like, it was a small crowd. But this person chased me down in the hallway and was just, like, telling me, like, how good this artist's music was. They've been following them for decades. And you have to realize is that you can have a cult-like following. Your music career can be supported off a small following. So even though you may think that you're small, you're always going to be bigger to someone else. I always have this motto when I work with artists. I always tell them, like, hey, I treat everybody like a superstar. Why? Because everybody to me is a superstar. I love working with talented musicians, man. I love hearing people's dreams, thoughts, aspirations, and I love helping people taking their music to the next level. So if you've worked with me, you made music with me, I mean, you're definitely a star to me. Man, I just really wish that I could leak a lot of these projects off my hard drive, man, because some of these records on my computer or wherever that I've recorded are some of the biggest records to me. So if you're listening to this, yeah, you are a superstar. You can go out there and go do it. You can go out there and go kill it. You can go out there, sell 1 million records, or you can go out there, sell 1,000 records, whatever that number is, whatever the amount of work that you want to put in. Like, you can do it. Never doubt yourself. So if you're thinking about quitting your music career, don't. Go to that place, do whatever you need to do to get your mind right, and let's really go out there and kill it. Let's swing the bat and let's make some great records. So if everybody has made it to this part of the podcast, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.